Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and I got a request to make a video about how to use component libraries in React. So kind of like when you're doing a normal HTML, CSS, JavaScript page, you have CSS frameworks like Materialize, Bulma, Bootstrap, etc. A lot of times there's other frameworks built for components. So essentially what they did is they just take that framework and built it into React, Vue, or Angular components, making it easier to use those in more robust ways within those frameworks. Okay, sometimes it's the only way to use those in those frameworks, depending on how you have it set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new React project. So let's go to my React folder. And I'm going to just do npx create React basic components or styling, or let's call it comp libraries. You can probably hear my bird flying around. So that'll get cloned, cd into that folder. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the git repository, kill git, and install npm. Okay, let that install. So while that does that, let's go bring up, first we'll try React Bootstrap. So React Bootstrap. Okay. So here we go, React Bootstrap. So let's read the documentation, get started. Always the first step into using a component library is to install it using npm. So we're going to copy the install command. I will paste it here. Okay, my bird thinks I'm talking to it. So it's deciding to be very talkative because it does not realize I'm recording a video. Oh, bird. But let's see here. Let's go into this folder. And let's see here. Let's just make sure that it's installed. So if I go to the dependencies, I see Bootstrap. And I see React Bootstrap. So I could just have Bootstrap if I just wanted to use the CSS throughout my code. Okay. And so basically what I could do is I could just go to my source, go to my component, anywhere. If I just wanted to use the standard Bootstrap classes, I could just literally import Bootstrap. Okay, and then that'll basically be the same thing as me importing the CSS file and make all those classes available. But the benefit here is to use the components, the pre-made React Bootstrap components. So I'm going to remove that, but let's try some of them out. So the way generally these work is you have to import the individual component that we want to use. So see here, we're importing button from React Bootstrap button. So let's just try some simple ones. Let's try some buttons. Okay. So let's see, this is a button component. Give me an example of the import tag. One thing about all these component libraries, I always find their documentation a little lacking, which is why I don't use them too often. I like the idea of them. You know. Okay, so okay. So you should import individual components like this React Bootstrap button. Okay, so it's just always the buttons. Okay, the component name afterwards. Okie dokie. So in that case, we want let's go back to buttons. And I want to use the secondary button. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the button. Import button from React Bootstrap. React Bootstrap / button. Okay, and then let's just wrap this up in a fragment. Okay. So then I would use that component button that I have in there, and then I can literally just use the version of the button I want here. So let's just grab that. not sure why they're putting. Oh, I think it's just so that way they put a space between the button. Okay, so again, this is just a prop that they have to determine which version of the button they have. So that's just built into the component. And then here I can put the text that I want. Cheese. Okay. And now let's run the npm run dev so we can see how that works. Cheese. Okay, see. Oh, that still looks like a normal button. Okay, so that doesn't quite get the effect that we want. Why? So let's examine. Let's read the docs. Okay, layout. Getting started. Importing components. Yes, bundles with all components exported. File sheets. Some style sheet is required to use these components. So it wants us to import this. Seems like what it's telling me. Okay, so I'm going to import that. I think if I import that, yeah, we'll just import it right here from app. I think we'll be fine. Save. Let's see here. Does that fix it? Yeah, and there you go. So now that looks like the button because we're importing the Bootstrap CSS. Okay. And which styles is up to you, but the simplest way to include the latest styles from the CDN is a little bit more information about the benefits. Okay. So that seems to be what's needed. Okay, so this imports the component, but then we have to import the style sheet, which we did. And I think that is what we needed to do. Okay. So there we go. Now the button looks more like a button, a Bootstrap button. Cool. Because basically the component underneath, the HTML of that component, so let's actually, let me open up the DevTools. Okay, so when I go in the component, see we have this button component, and I can see what's in there. So I can see, hey, look, it has all these props: active, children, disabled, false. Stuff we can probably figure out in the documentation, but also let's just see what it creates in the elements. So when we use that button, see it's creating a button of type button, and see it has that Bootstrap class on it. So that's all these components are. Again, they're just components that have HTML wrapped inside of them. So it's just using those Bootstrap classes underneath. That's essentially how this works. Okay, but let's say we wanted to use, let's go back to components, and let's say we wanted to like assign a function to it. Well, usually it'll tell us what we can do right down at the bottom of these pages. Like here's the API for this button component. So this shows me, I think these are props I can pass and functions I can pass in. Okay, so basically this would be the prop, and this is what I can pass the prop. And then this is what it does. And then if it has a default value, if we don't specify it, it'll show up here. So, an alert is closed, base prefix heading, link. Element type is base prefix. Snap dismissing. Oh no, we're not looking at button, I don't think. Buttons, here we go. Scroll to the bottom and take a look at the specificities for button. Okay, href, providing an href will render an A element styled as a button. Okay, so if you want to make that button a link, that's the deal there. Combinations, toggle button group. So here we can change, we can pass a function, toggle button, check. So again, this is going to be the prop that you pass in. This is what the prop should take. This is what it will do. Okay, so this will tell you sort of how you can use that button, what you can pass into it to make it do things. So let me see if I can find an example, or one that's useful. A ref attached to the input element. Value, any type, on change. Just for normal button, target, variant, string, active. You can use a custom element type as for this component. Block, spans the full width of the button parent. href target type variant string bs prefix. Okay, so you have things you can do there. Okay. But yeah, that's kind of how these all work. So basically you would, so for example here, now notice like something like this. This is an accordion menu. You click on it, but it's not made up of just one component. It's made up actually of several components. The accordion is one component that is wrapping around a card component. And then the card component has a subcomponents like card header. Okay, and then that's how you end up getting this effect. Okay. So when you're looking at these example codes, you have to kind of study it and say, okay, what components are being used? Because then you have to go back and to kind of take a look at those components. This example here is just focusing on the accordion component, which is this right here. So it tells you what to do, all the documentations for that component. But again, inside that component is a card component. So for me to understand what's going on with this component, I'd have to go down and take a look at the cards component and read the documentation there. So again, it just tells you, gives you examples, and then at the bottom, at the very bottom, it'll show you all the props for that particular component that you can pass in. Okay, so that's essentially how this documentation works. And let's see other React component libraries. React component libraries. And there's a whole bunch of them. Let's see, let's take a look at this article here. Top 13. Rebas. The first one I'm going to be covering is Rebas. It's a UI component library. Okay. And design I always see people use a lot. React-Bootstrap. Material UI. React Spinner. Okay. Semantic UI is another big one. Grommet, never heard of that one here before. Intended to help you with the task of creating your own website simply by mixing and matching parts. Gestalt, that's another one I haven't really heard of. Fabric, Onsen I've heard of. React Virtualize, but there's a whole bunch of these libraries, and there's a bunch of ones. These are just like generally free ones, but there's also a whole world of like paid for ones that are like supercharged and have like everything, like every little button, modal, whatnot you can think of, with all sorts of customizations. But at the end of the day, it's all about reading the docs. Okay, and oftentimes reading the docs of a component library can be very difficult if you're not comfortable with the React library itself. So it's always like the first step is really getting strong in your fundamentals, and then once you really understand the fundamentals of React and how React is working under the hood, in the sense like what does it mean, what is a component, and what's going on when you use a component, it becomes easier to use these component libraries. Okay, but again, just as easily I could, okay, what I can do is I can just use Bootstrap. So if I wanted to just use, so let's say I get rid of this, I can just import, since I've installed Bootstrap, I can go install Bootstrap and then instead use a button, which let's just test this out to make sure that it does work. So Bootstrap, or I think it's getbootstrap.com. Okay, and I go to buttons. Let's go to components, buttons. Here we go. Let's just test this out. So if I grab one of these buttons from the library, so I'll just grab that one, success, copy, and I put it there. Because I imported Bootstrap, it should work, but let's see here, it doesn't like something. React failed to compile, find the error, JS Bootstrap. Error in node modules dist bootstrap.js module can't resolve jQuery. Oh god, it's looking for jQuery, so I just want the CSS. I guess I have to install jQuery. Npm I jQuery. Then in Bootstrap 5, which is coming out soon, they have eliminated the dependence on jQuery, so you won't always have to install jQuery every time you want to use Bootstrap. So let's see if that fixes it now that I've installed jQuery. Npm run dev. Okay, I don't think so. Let's see what it says now. Okay, error, cannot resolve popper.js. Okay, so now it wants me to install popper. So let's see here, npm, hi, hey birdie, you go over here. npm I popper, let's see here, I think that would be it. Okay, that's another reason why I don't like using a lot of third-party libraries, because it always ends up in you having to install more third-party libraries. And then everything gets kind of out of control for simple projects. Okay, cool. So that happened there. That's what's happening. Let's just double check that installed. There's popper. I'm not even sure what popper does. npm run dev. Nope, what's the need now? It's still not resolving popper.js. Boo. So in that case, what I can do, actually let's go here to Bootstrap, to the Bootstrap website, because there should be the installation details for when you want to install it just as a npm. So let's see here, box sizing, download, compiled CSS, samples, Bootstrap CDN. Here we go, npm install Bootstrap. Require Bootstrap will load all Bootstrap models. SAS contains some additional metadata of the following keys, yarn. Okay. Let me see if I do change it to a require. Does that adjust things? Require. Require. Bootstrap. Let's see here. Nope, still doesn't like it. Okay, the easiest thing to do would just be to copy. Where was that? Back to the React Bootstrap documentation. Let's go here, React Bootstrap. Okay, we could just refer to the CSS this way again. That's one way to get it to work. So I just do this. And then that should get me the result I want. See, that compiled successfully. And that way I can at least use I can use the CSS from Bootstrap as normal CSS instead of using the components. But I don't know. I always find like this always gets a little bit more involved. It doesn't necessarily save me as much time as you'd think, versus just getting used to having some sort of go-to strategies for styling on my own. Or just spending the time styling my own and really getting comfortable with CSS, I always find actually ends up saving me more time in certain situations. If I'm really just looking to save time, then I would just use like materialize. Like let's see here, not materialize. I would use I always forget the name. Also starts with M, but not materialize. It is called man, nah, not coming to me right now. But yeah, this is the basic idea. You can either use the components or you can use the CSS. You can import it all, but the idea is that everything's got to be imported, because depending on what your build is, like if you're using Create React Basic, which is my template here, you could just put the script tags, the script tags for Bootstrap here. But in Create React App, it doesn't really have a place for you to do that. And I think if you try to put that in the HTML file, it actually breaks. So you have to kind of use it through the npm packages. So it just depends on what your environment looks like and how you want to use it. So that's that. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day and enjoy.